That night, I opened my banking app again before going to bed. The balance had dropped once more, even though we hadn't bought anything significant that month. I stared at the numbers for a long moment. I already knew where the money had gone, yet a heaviness lingered in my chest. In the living room, Armand was helping Mira put together a puzzle. Their quiet laughter made everything around them seem perfectly normal. But in my hand was a message I had just replied to. "Don't worry, I'll help." Words I seemed to write far too often. My name is Clara, and for a very long time I believed helping my family was an expression of love. Morning unfolded the way it always did. Breakfast, school lunch preparations, and a quiet list of household tasks filled the start of the day. While washing dishes, I answered a call from my older sister. The tiredness in her voice carried a problem I had heard before. There was an unexpected expense that had come up. I was told it would only be temporary and would be paid back later. I nodded even though she could not see me. "Okay, I'll take a look first," was all I said. After the call ended, I opened our family budget notebook. I ran the numbers once, then checked them again. On paper, everything still looked manageable. Even so, something about it left me uneasy. I closed the notebook and set it aside. Then I tried to continue the rest of the day as if nothing had changed. A few days later, another message appeared on my phone. I looked at the screen for a moment before opening it. This time, it came from a different member of the family. The name was different, but the feeling felt familiar. The amount being asked for was not very large. The situation did not seem urgent either. Even so, I chose to help again. My response came almost as naturally as before. After a while, I started noticing something unusual. The same kind of situations seemed to return again and again. Whenever a problem came up, I seemed to be the first person people contacted. It happened often enough that I could no longer ignore it. And almost every time I found it hard to say no. That thought stayed with me longer than I expected. One afternoon, I came across an old folder of transfer receipts I had almost forgotten. I sat quietly at the dining table, looking at dates from years that no longer felt distant. I started sorting them one by one without any real purpose. Month after month, the stack quietly revealed how often my help had been needed. Some transfers had eventually been returned. Others remained where they were, untouched by any repayment. I kept telling myself that this wasn't really about the money. The numbers felt less important than what they seemed to represent. But the longer I looked at everything in front of me, the harder it became to ignore what I was feeling. Something uncomfortable stayed with me as I continued reading. A question began forming in my mind, one I had never really stopped to consider before. It lingered there longer than I expected. Was I helping because I truly wanted to help? Or was I afraid of being seen as someone who didn't care? The weekend finally arrived after another busy week. I hoped the slower pace would help me feel a little lighter. We spent the afternoon at the park with Mira. For a while, I followed her small steps across the open grass. Armand bought ice cream for the three of us before we sat together. It felt like a simple moment that asked for nothing more. Mira laughed through the afternoon without a care in the world. Her joy seemed to fill every quiet corner around us. From the outside, everything looked warm and complete. Anyone passing by would have seen an ordinary happy family. Yet my thoughts kept returning to the numbers I carried alone. Even in the middle of the afternoon, they stayed quietly in the background. I was beginning to feel tired from holding all those worries by myself. The weight was quiet, but it stayed with me. That night, Mira sat at the dining table with her crayons spread around her. The house was quiet as she focused on her drawing. I sat beside her while going through a few bills before the end of the day. My attention moved quietly between the papers and her drawing. On her paper, she had drawn a small house with 3 people standing inside. She seemed completely certain about every line she added. Then she began filling the space outside the house with many more people. One figure after another appeared around the small drawing. I smiled as I looked at the picture taking shape. "Who are all those people?" I asked her. Without pausing to think, Mira answered right away. "Those are all the people Mom helps." A moment later, she added one more thought in a quiet voice. "But Mom always looks tired afterward." I sat quietly for a moment, unable to respond right away. Something about Myra's drawing left me staring a little longer than usual. The simple sentence stayed with me long after the conversation ended. It kept returning to my mind throughout the evening. I realized the exhaustion was not really about the money itself. The numbers alone were never what weighed on me most. It was not even the amount of help I had given over time. The total never fully explained why I felt this way. What truly drained me was a belief I had carried for years. It was a quiet expectation I rarely questioned. I had convinced myself that I always needed to be available. I felt responsible for helping whenever someone reached out. Without noticing it, I had been placing my own household's needs second. That realization sat quietly with me as the night grew later. The following evening, I finally brought the conversation to Arman. The words came slowly, as if I had been carrying them for a long time. There was no argument waiting between us, only a calm space where both of us remained present. After Mira had gone to sleep, the house felt unusually quiet. We stayed at the dining table, letting the silence settle around us. "I've started feeling guilty whenever I don't help them," I admitted. Saying it out loud made the feeling harder to ignore. Arman listened without interrupting. He simply stayed with my words as they were. Then he spoke quietly. "I think you've been carrying all of this by yourself for too long." For the first time, I felt truly heard. Nothing around me changed, yet something inside became a little lighter. We decided to create one simple rule for our household. It felt small, but it gave shape to something we had never clearly discussed before. I would no longer make financial help decisions on my own. The thought felt unfamiliar after carrying that responsibility for so long. Before helping anyone, we would talk about it together first. The conversation itself became part of the decision. We also began setting clear limits. Putting those boundaries into words felt more concrete than leaving them unspoken. We talked about what we could realistically help with. Seeing it clearly made the discussion feel more grounded. We also acknowledged what we were not able to help with right now. Saying it out loud felt different from silently carrying it. I noticed that having boundaries did not make us worse people. Life looked much the same, yet something inside me felt a little steadier. A few weeks later, another request for help arrived. Seeing the message, I felt the familiar pause settle quietly inside me. This time, I did not answer right away. I let the message sit while I sat with my own thoughts. I stopped and gave myself time to think. I talked with Arman and considered our family situation before deciding anything. For the first time, I said no to something we could not realistically carry. The word felt unfamiliar, but I knew why I was saying it. I learned that love does not always sound like yes. Sometimes I look around my own home first and wonder if others have ever felt the same guilt when trying to protect what matters most.